How can one speak of joy at a time like this? I can hear somebody saying. In this episode, Dr. MaryCatherine McDonald will explain how to find joy in the darkness and how simple exercises can help your mental health. The book is quite a paradox, as you will find if you read it. It is called The Joy Reset, and it focuses on dealing with the 6 key barriers to joy that most of us, or some of us, have found, such as hypervigilance, emotional numbing, fear of loss, cultural conditioning and conditioning, guilt, and shame. And of course, she is a researcher about trauma and the nervous system. She is a research professor of psychology and a coach who specializes in the psychology and philosophy of trauma. Her work focuses on thinking critically about how we understand, define, and heal from traumatic experiences. She has published several research articles and book chapters, as well as 3 books on trauma. In addition to her academic work, Dr. McDonald coaches individuals and corporations and creates trauma-based curriculums for nonprofit organizations and schools. So this interview is not just about what people I usually think conceptualize as joy. It's much deeper and much more profound, and I believe you're really going to enjoy this interview with her. She's quite a deep thinker. She walks the walk as much as she can. She's very authentic. She has quite a following on social media right now where she does exercises every day. And we'll get into it. It's time for the interview. And I'm so glad that Dr. MaryCatherine McDonald is here to talk about her new book, The Joy Reset, 6 Ways Trauma Steals Happiness and How to Win It Back. And of course, this was endorsed by the best-selling author, Mel Robbins. So welcome, Dr. McDonald.
Thank you so much. It's so good to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yes, my pleasure. So,
do you want to hear the story of how I met Mel Robbins?
Yeah, I do. Let's go there first.
I met her on the platform TikTok. She had been through a kind of traumatic event. She actually witnessed a traumatic event and was struggling with her response to it. She was really shocked at how intensely she was responding to this because it hadn't happened directly to her. And so someone from her team reached out to me on TikTok because I had just made a video that that got a lot of views. And so we sat down together and I helped her kind of understand the trauma response and vicarious trauma and why sometimes traumas that happen to other people can infiltrate our own nervous system and psyche. And so it was kind of I'm sorry that she went through what she went through and that the family went through what they went through. But it was a really kind of neat, one of those moments where you're like, this is why the internet exists, you can reach out and actually talk to somebody.
Wow, a positive use of the internet and connecting people. I love to hear those stories because it is a tool and it can be used for good or evil or entertainment or everything in between. So,
yep.
And that actually brings us to one of my questions, which is, of course, during this day and age, well, we have lots of cool, fun comedy clips online. And of course, the newspapers and the news channels are all online. We have a lot of disturbing content to walk through, whether it be images of war or arrests or problems, and then people's volatile emotional reactions. And pretty much now it seems like people are just in the US. I don't think this is happening everywhere, but definitely in the US, people are just like filming themselves doing everything. And it's like kind of weird because it's like, are you really living? So then a lot of people, because of this online life and people witnessing the online life, they say, joy, what are you talking about? How could we have joy at a time like this? So I guess that's a big question for you, Dr. McDonald, if you want to start with that.
Yeah, it's a big question. And it's actually, it's a great place to start because I can sort of summarize the whole point of the book, which part of, there were 2 goals in the book. One is to sort of redefine joy. And by redefine it, I mean sort of rescue it from the sort of frivolous, silly definitions that we often use when we talk about joy. I think we think of it as something very like light and airy and silly, and also, therefore, something that isn't that doesn't belong in the space of healing and hard work psychologically. And the research shows that it's the opposite. Joy is actually quite tenacious. It's really strong. It's one of the best tools that we have when it comes to brain and nervous system rewiring. And so I think rescuing the definition of joy from the silliness definition is really critical, because then we can really start to lean into using it as a tool. But the other thing that came up in the writing of the book and the researching of it was that I wanted to address the nervous system that is resistant to joy. Because what I found, so personally, I always felt a little bit skeptical about the field of positive psychology in general, because it felt like tools that were aimed for folks who were already at a good baseline and wanted to get to sort of thriving. And what the research actually shows, and this started coming out in 2015, is that a lot of the tools in positive psychology are incredibly effective, like I said, when it comes to brain rewiring and nervous system remapping. But I didn't feel like the tools were really adapted for folks who are actually in the dark, right? Like people who are dealing with trauma or grief or the, strife that we are currently living in, at least in the United States. And so when I started doing the research, I started thinking, okay, how can we adapt these tools for folks who are resistant for various reasons? And that's where the subtitle of the book comes in, which is The Six Thieves of Joy and How to Outsmart Them, or something like that. I don't know the title.
Yeah, the Six Ways Trauma Steals Happiness and How to Win It Back. Yes, of course. Similar summary, yeah.
Yeah. So I go through to get back to the sort of joy at a time like this. How could you? I go through six joy thieves, that are all adaptations from trauma and overwhelm and stress, and try to figure out how to outsmart them. And one of them is guilt. When I was writing the book, I had in mind clients, I'm sure you've had clients in this situation, who were grieving, and who, when you start to feel sort of a flicker of hope for your future, or maybe you start feeling enjoyment again, you immediately kind of snap back to guilt, because it feels like a betrayal of the loss, like as if we can only experience grief in the form of sadness.
Mm-hmm.
But then, as you know, when you write a book, you write it and then like 42 years go by and then the book comes out. Right? And so I didn't have any idea. It was well done before our current sort of political situation. And so I had no idea how it was going to resonate. And the thing that I've heard the most as I've been speaking about it and teaching about it this year is that guilt is coming up more than any other joy thief, because when things are going badly on a wide scale, we immediately default to guilt. If I'm having a good time in my life, or if I have a success, I feel bad about it, because I know it's happening against this backdrop of darkness, and so many people are struggling. And I think when we meet that resistance and take it seriously, we learn a lot. And I think if we look at guilt and joy, I think the important takeaway is that every moment that we spend imprinting joy is a moment that we are contributing to the collective calm. Every moment that we spend in guilt is a moment that we are contributing to the collective dysregulation. And so it's not just that like it's okay to experience joy at a time like this, but joy is a rebellion. It's a form of resistance, and it's really critical.
Wow. Okay, that's an excellent reframe, and I do think, I don't want to tell everybody all the reframes, but I think that's a good start. Is that having joy at times of darkness, if you're doing it in an authentic way and not sort of in a bypassing way, can really help other people that are in your community, perhaps. Because that's different than saying, well, why aren't you so happy? You got everything going well. Why aren't you doing that? Like, kind of in that kind of guilting somebody into trying to feel better versus just trying to share maybe some positive moments, I guess. And is that what you're sort of saying?
Yeah, and I mean, I think this kind of falls back to the definition of joy. We think of joy as this thing that we can only access when things are good, and I think what is actually true is that joy is standing there with us in the dark. It's just that we don't recognize it because we've misdefined it. And so in the story I tell, or in the book, I tell a lot of stories of my clients, but I also have my own where, if in some dark moments in my life, I'm sure your listeners can relate, there isn't ever just darkness. There are always these little peaks of joy that come in. And so one of the stories that I tell often is when, so my father died when I was 24, really suddenly, just absolutely out of the blue. And when I was in that grief state, I was really, really struggling. I would come home at work and just sort of lie on the floor of my apartment and just kind of wail. It was just impossible grief. And my future felt impossible. And every single day, there would be something that would sort of float in and interrupt that grief, that darkness, that was at that point the darkest place I'd ever been. And so it would be like a child laughing hysterically on the sidewalk, and that sound would sort of filter in the window. And then you sort of like, you just smile because it's contagious. Or, someone would be cooking food on the hallway of my building, and it was, I was like, oh man, that actually smells really good. I'm hungry. I can't wait for dinner. These little peaks of joy come in our darkest moments. And I think what they do is sustain us. They're anchors. And if we can lean into that, then we can get through a lot more than when we don't lean into that.
Yeah, it does seem like sometimes when really bad things are happening, you can feel, like you said, guilty and also when you feel happy, like the fear of joy. I think you talk about fear of loss in here, but like when you feel happy, it's like, oh, but if I feel happy too long, then maybe this is going to go away. Yeah. And of course it's going to go away. That's right. That's not. And so then are you afraid to experience it? Are you restricting your experience, which is something we see with people with hypervigilance and trauma, is that they, and honestly, I think hypervigilance and trauma is getting worse, even if people don't have PTSD in our society.
Oh, absolutely.
We're afraid to kind of express positive feelings if especially having a degree of privilege in the United States, at least in some aspects of not, having to walk 5 miles to get water and wonder if my school's going to be blown up by bombs. It might be hurt by random shooters, but not by, bombs and these sort of things. So what are some ways that you try to practice maybe just like one of these exercises to help you with joy?
Yeah, and we can definitely go through more than one. The one that I'm doing the most commonly in 2025 is called Tiny Little Joys, which is actually came out of my last book, Unbroken, which is about sort of redefining, re-understanding trauma and the trauma response. And the idea with Tiny Little Joys is actually, so in general, the goal is to notice small, joyful things in your daily life and imprint them, meaning, step into them a little bit, savor them a little bit, let yourself dwell and sort of revel in the joy for a moment, and then go back to your daily life, whatever that is. And the reason for this is because it's actually based in a little bit of positive psychology, but also Peter Levine's work on trauma. He's the founder of somatic experiencing therapy, for those who might be unfamiliar. And he talks about the importance of pendulation when you're healing from trauma, by which he means like, you're going to pendulate into, you're going to think of a pendulum in the way that it moves. You're going to swing into the difficult moment, and then you're going to swing back out. So the goal of healing is not to just stay with the difficult moment until it dissipates. It's to kind of learn this oscillation. And I think we are very quick to understand that that's necessary with trauma, because trauma is triggering. But I also think we need to understand that for a hypervigilant nervous system, joy is triggering. And so Tiny Little Joys lets you sort of dip into a little bit of joy without activating your nervous system to rebel against it. And the other sort of layer to the practice, if you're working with someone who's really resistant to joy, is to start actually with a compost pile. So before you get into the joy and the gratitude and all of this other stuff, you write down what is shitty, right? Here's the compost, literally, here's the compost. I'm dealing with, my clients are really struggling in a way they never have before. I just moved and it's really annoying to try to find everything and unpack and redecorate. I got stuck in traffic today. The weather isn't what I like, right? Your brain is already thinking and kind of clocking all the bad. So write it down on the piece of paper. And then take a deep breath and try to find something in your immediate environment that sparks just like a little blast of joy. So we can do that right now if you want.
Sure, let's do it.
If you are willing.
Yeah, I'm up for it. Let's do it.
Do you want to start with compost?
Yeah.
Okay. What do you got?
Well, I was at the dog hospital this morning because my dog had a injury. She is okay. That sucked. So then I didn't get to take a shower because I woke up with her having this injury. And then my poor clients, I had to cancel on most of my clients this morning. Luckily, I was able to see one of them who was having a bad day. Then I had to pay a lot of money for that.
Oh, so frustrating. Yeah.
And, other people in my life this week have been having a hard time. Like 4 or 5 other people have been having actually absolutely horrid week. And I was like kind of being there for them via text or phone. And then I was like, wow, finally I got off the last phone call last night around 11:30. And I was like, whoa, good thing that I'm almost to the weekend. And then I woke up with my dog having this injury. So that was a lot that happened in the last 24 hours.
That's a lot of compost. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, take a deep breath.
Okay.
Now, look just in your immediate environment. Is there anything on your desk or around you that gives you a little feeling of joy, a memory of joy?
Yeah. There's 2 things, actually. One is this Zen sandbox that my friend made me.
Those.
My friend made this. Her name is Kayla, and she made myself and some of our friends this because she was moving out of the state and she wanted to give us a nice memento. And she made this with her bare hands, and it's beautiful.
It's beautiful.
She did not buy it, and I like looking at it because it reminds me to take time to rake some sand and make myself feel better. And then I looked over here to my right, and I have a business card. Whoops. I spilled my water too. This day is amazing. No. Yeah, not hilarious. But I'm actually laughing at that now. Maybe this exercise is helping. But I didn't spill too much of it. But
okay, good.
That's why I have a bottle. But right. I see, this is hilarious. See, the universe is providing this. This will not be edited out. Yeah. I have a business card I made for because we're not going to use the video for this, but it's called violencepreventionhotline.org, which is the National Violence Prevention Hotline, which is a concept I created 8 years ago or 7 years ago, and I printed the business cards at the time to hand out at conferences. To see if somebody would help me do it, and no one helped.
Oh, cool.
But then this year, some people got in touch with me in March and held a giant fundraiser, and now we have a director of operations, we have a crisis counselor, we've got 5 counselors, we're receiving calls, and we're up for grants, and we've got volunteers, and we're starting to make this thing happen. So the more volunteers we get, the better we do. And so I got really excited because we had a new volunteer this week that is going to start helping with this hotline. So,
wow,
to combat violent acts in the United States. So that made me happy because it was an old business card, and then it's and now it's
coming
reality.
To fruition.
It's kind of coming to fruition. Yeah,
that's amazing. I love that. Okay, so as you sort of like imprint the joy, right? Like as you sink into it, what does that feel like?
Well, I started to feel better. Like I exhaled a lot of the garbage. And I, kind of let that out, on the air. And then I looked around and basically saw that there was some good things in my life too, that, just because I have a bad day and, my dog, and then I can also think, oh, my dog's okay. She's going to be fine. And, this injury is fixable and it's not fatal and, anything like that. So, that sort of thing, I think is why I felt that way. Yeah.
I love that. I think you just described so perfectly exactly one of the things that the practice aims to do, which is to kind of return you to a more holistic view of what's actually real. Because we have a negativity bias in the brain, because that's how we've evolved, it's very easy to get stuck in the compost and only see the compost and live in the compost. And the compost is there. It's real. It's not like the exercise erased the bad stuff that you mentioned at the beginning, but you're able to sort of relate to it differently because you see the world in a more holistic way. Yes, the bad, and also there's this good stuff. And in your case, really deep, good stuff, right? It was just like, you went on you told a whole arc there of success, which is really, really beautiful. And so that's exactly what the practice is supposed to do. I've been doing it every day on TikTok and Instagram, and that's not my jam. And it was almost, I was laughing when you said like the universe was sort of, laughing at you as you were doing this and whatever, because I have had probably one of the hardest years of my life, which was totally unexpected. I had mono, and then I had Bell's palsy. I had to have heart surgery. One of my friends died. Like really objectively bad things happened. And, but I think the beauty of it was that I've really gotten a chance to kind of put the tool to practice in a real sense. And what I've seen that surprises me is how incredibly anchoring the practice is when you are able to commit to it every day. Because it doesn't erase any of the crazy stuff that's happened this year or that will continue to happen, but it has really helped me stay stable, that's a lot. That's a lot of bang for a little tool.
Yeah. I mean, it's a little tool that we can all do. And it's something you can even write on paper. We did it live, but you could write it on paper, like the left side or like the compost, and the right side are those like little reminders of positive things. Wow. Thank you for showing us all that, and me.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Doing it. So, I guess, I see your point here. I think that some people, I think the reason that people might say, whoa, why could you do it at a time like this? I actually feel like that signals towards one of the concepts in the book. And I'm not sure if I'm right on this. You tell me, but it seems to be like joy when joy is triggering. Is joy triggering right now? On the internet, people say, how dare you go celebrate and have wonderful dinners when the children in Gaza are starving? And your country's, supplying them weapons. What do you say? How do we deal with it if joy is triggering? Like people shaming you for having taking a small pleasure in your life. What do you do with that?
Yeah, I mean, I think, and I've gotten some of that feedback, right? So I'm on social media, and I've gotten some of those messages, and it stings, and it's supposed to, right? Like that's the intent. And I don't want to minimize that, because I think that can really take the wind out of your sails in a lot of ways. But I really do think that if we understand what joy does neurobiologically, which is it helps you to switch off the fear circuitry in the brain, it helps to regulate the nervous system. It helps to give you a merciful little break so that you can go back to doing whatever you were doing. Then I think we can kind of recalibrate the way that we see joy and the way people are engaged with it. Because, like I said before, we have more of a responsibility now than ever to lean into joy, because it's going to be the thing that sustains us through this marathon of terribleness that we're currently going through. And so it's not, I think, it's a toxic kind of joy that intends to erase what's going on in Gaza. That's not the kind of joy I mean at all. That's the kind of bypassy, toxic positivity joy that's supposed to say, okay, don't grieve, just be happy, right? This joy is the joy that shows up and meets you in the dark and says, yeah, this really sucks. And
do what you can. Right. I mean, there's some people that are called to, go over there, and some people get money, and, some people are in politics, and some people are trying to negotiate between the two sides. And there's things you can do. I think there's also just grandstanding on social media and shaming people
100%.
when because you feel powerless to do anything about it. Right.
Yeah.
So I think if you can take a positive action, that's good. And, you know, the hard part is that the internet, the social media world does seem to lean towards marketing and negatively cutting each other down. I feels like
100%.
Versus maybe because we're anonymous on there or not always anonymous, but like we're disembodied, perhaps. And some of these, you know, we did this over the internet, but this podcast, we did that activity, but you know, some of these you can do in person with your friends, and some of them you're doing alone. And what I feel like you're doing here is you're taking what a emotion that the body feels, and you're giving the nervous system an idea to not completely fixate on the negative.
Yes.
Is that what I'm hearing?
Yes, totally.
So the downward spiral stops if you can say, yes, there is a downward part of my life and there's an upward part of my life. There's a difficult part of my life and there's a positive thing in my life. Versus if I go down, 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 negative, 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 I start circling the drain, as they call it, right? And that downward spiral, there was a book called The Upward Spiral where he talks about all the ways to get out of depression. And I think that it sounds like this is trying to help people train themselves to be able to do a little bit of something different. For instance, I guess, and this is where I wonder, I'm not sure what part of the book this is, but because, you know, you broke it into 6 parts and then you've got your discussions. But what I've found, another thing, so besides the guilting and the shame, is, I'm not sure what you call this, but there are folks that have had PTSD and trauma. And in those cases, they maybe haven't had justice. Perhaps the person or the system that has harmed them got away with it, right? And so they're wallowing with the after effects of having something had happened to them. How do we help folks like that be able to even consider joy? Because I almost feel like they're joy phobic. They're like, how could I ever be happy if this person's walking around free, or if this system isn't reformed or something like that, right? Is that addressed in here? I feel like it was, but...
not directly, but I think indirectly, yes. I mean, I think that one of the things that happens that we try to ignore, or we, you know, because we can't live in it, is that we encounter situations in which we are powerless, or there is no recourse, or we can't access hope. And I think there's sort of a toxic message from society that says you can't give up hope. And the truth is that we all have moments where we do. And so if we could normalize that and then respond to it by saying, look, hope and joy don't actually need you to exist, need you to believe in them for them to exist. Right? It's okay to give up hope. And I don't say that lightly, like giving up hope is this then freeing thing that just, you know, then you're fine, right? Giving up hope is a desperate, awful moment. And I think sometimes it's because of situations like the one you mentioned, where there's a moral injury, where you have no recourse to, there's no justice to be served, or if there is justice, it's not going to be. And I think the way to kind of respond to that is to move back into a space of agency in any way that you can. And that could mean authoring your own story. That could mean advocating for people who are in situations that, and giving them a form of recourse that you couldn't have, right? Things like that. And then I think, again, getting to the space where you can say, okay, whatever journey that I'm on to find recourse or deal or cope with this trauma, could I use joy as something that is going to sustain me through this? And again, giving it to yourself in these smaller doses so that your nervous system isn't triggered to rebel against it.
So the triggering in the nervous system. So you talk about in the book neurobiology and joy and healing in the nervous system.
Yeah.
Could you explain maybe some of how having an awareness of your own nervous system state can help with resetting the joy in your life?
Yes. And I think it's also, engaging in practices that counter some of the negative practices or negative thought spirals that we get into. So I did an interdisciplinary PhD. So I bring in psychology with neuroscience and philosophy to kind of rethink a lot of the things that we can sometimes take for granted in society and the way that we define things. One of the coolest discoveries in the last 2 or 3 decades in the field of neuroscience has to do with something that has been termed the hope circuit. So just to geek out a little bit on the science for a second, if you think of your brain as a circuit board, and you can think of, like, if you've ever lived in an old house, you know that sometimes the circuits are counterposed, meaning they can't be on at the same time. So in my house, if I have the air conditioning on and I try to run a hairdryer or a microwave, the fuse will blow. The same is true in our own minds. And we understand this because if you're in a moment of fear, if you've ever been in a moment of fear, doesn't even need to be a big capital T trauma, just any moment of fear, you know that having hope for the future or imagining your next vacation, these things are inaccessible to you. When you're in that moment of intense fear, you don't hope. What they discovered in 2015, neuroscientists discovered, is that hope also has a dampening effect on fear. And so if you know that, you can then leverage hope practices that get you into the hope circuit, like tiny little joys or other practices. And by doing that, you are manually sort of turning on the hope circuit in your brain, which by definition shuts down the fear circuit. And that's going to have an immediate effect, but also a longer term effect, because you're every time you do that, you're also getting positive stress hormones instead of the negative stress hormones. And so all of these things can help you feel differently in your body. So I think it's about being aware of the triggers and how to counter them, but also being aware of, like, what can I do in my day-to-day life when I'm not in a moment of distress to help me access these parts of my brain and use them like muscles.
I see. And so that could be the way the nervous system basically is able to build up some gray matter and some resilience against kind of constant fear, because I think fear is also a spiral.
Oh, absolutely.
And basically that when one piece of fear can set our nervous system awry, and if we don't reset that, it can just set us up for more and more and more fear, to the point where we have chronic anxiety or chronic triggers and we're afraid of almost anything, right?
Totally.
And it doesn't have to be actually like something that scared us. It could be something that we perceived that could be scary, right? It doesn't have to be 100%. Like somebody, coming after us in a car or, scaring us at a public event. It could be our perception of the news and how that might affect that. So these sort of things are important. And so, I mean, everyone talks about mindfulness meditation. So these like daily things. So are you suggesting that maybe this is just like these little activities that you talk about in the book, that these little things can just start kind of helping, kind of like meditation, maybe differently, but is that kind of where you're going with this?
Yeah. And I love that you brought up meditation, because I think, as someone who specializes in trauma, I've been saying for a long time to kind of beware of the meditation trap. If you're dealing with PTSD or an anxiety disorder that is not in control, meditation can exacerbate all of your symptoms and make things feel terrible. But we don't talk about that in society. We pretend like meditation is the cure-all, and we say, if you can't do it, there's something wrong with you, right? And that's a problem with the way that we view these things. So these practices definitely have mindfulness in mind, but they steer clear of meditation, because they're kind of aimed for folks who aren't ready for that yet, or aren't maybe going to ever be.
I see. Yeah. I've heard that, I've seen anecdotally, at least, that some people cannot do mindfulness meditation due to trauma and PTSD and anxiety. It just doesn't work for them. Sometimes active meditations can work, but I think all of your activities are active. So active meditations are different. A lot of people don't know the difference between those two, but mindfulness is, of course, noticing and breathing and all of these things you could go into in breath work. But active meditations are more like transcendental meditation and mantra-based meditations. But in this book, these are maybe more concrete things that people can see the results from versus like doing a meditation that they may not feel like they fully believe in that, right?
Right.
And while you don't have to believe in meditation, obviously it's the same thing. It's like why some people swim and some people run and some people lift weights and some people lift the remote control. Like we all have our own preferences of how we want to, move our bodies in the world. So why wouldn't we have our own preferences on how we exercise our minds, right? Some people are really into true crime podcasts. I don't understand that. I'm a therapist. I already hear enough about real crime in my office. And, some people like gross comedy. Some people like sci-fi. Some people like fantasy. Some people don't like any of it. They just want to read biographies and autobiographies and things like that. Yeah. And so it's the same idea. It's like these exercises can be a different way or a different avenue for folks, especially people with trauma and anxiety and with depression too, to exercise. And really, I mean, this is we've been realizing here in the psychology world that and the neuroscience world that if you don't use it, you lose it, right? And we don't want old habits or the environment to sort of take over for us or take over where our minds are. So we do have to exercise our minds just like we have to exercise our bodies. And we are exercising your mind. So every time you scroll on the internet on the doom scrolling of news and horrible comments or whatever people are writing to each other and fighting, you are exercising your mind, just maybe not in the most healthy way, right? Just the same way as when you go out and go on a nature hike or see a friend and play a fun game or take people out to dinner or cook for food for them at your house and spend quality time. That is also exercising your brain.
Yeah, 100%.
So if you were able to take a ratio and look at a graph, sort of like a pie chart of how you intentionally exercised your mind during the week, I think you'd be surprised at
100%
how much of that might be fitting into the category of healthier and how much was fitting into the category of neutral or not so healthy. And then we wonder why the results are what they are, right? Yeah. And I think that's the hard part of this also is that a lot of people, it took me a long time to learn this, but I think I was 19 when I learned about meta-awareness. Yeah. It's having awareness of yourself having thoughts. It takes practice. And before that, I just thought things were the way they were, and that's how everybody thought, or maybe I thought differently or whatever, but I didn't know why. Right. So, so it's a task to look inward, but I would say that you're going to suffer either way. So you might as well look inward and at least have some idea about why things are the way they are. Otherwise we're running around confused and ending up in bad and difficult situations, even more.
Yeah. Yep. I love that you brought that up about the sort of, we are bio-individual. And so not every tool is going to work for every individual. And we're so willing to accept that when it comes to preferences, TV show preferences or exercise preferences. But when it comes to anything that has any pathology attached to it, whether it's physical or mental or both, and of course they're connected, we don't allow ourselves that. And I don't think the field allows it enough either. And so it's like, well, here's the tool. And if the tool doesn't work for you, there's something wrong with you. And that's, it speaks to the whole kind of history of psychology, at least in the Western world. And I also love the way that you're talking about doom scrolling and the fact that I think we've lost the awareness that we are actually in control of what we consume. And there was a study, I remember Dan Tomasula wrote a book in 2020, came out in 2020, and I can't remember the name of it. But I was linked to him on podcasts, and he was saying that there was a study. The reason I'm citing him is because I don't have the study citation, so I can't verify it. But that it said that the nervous system can handle about 15 minutes of news before becoming dysregulated in a 24-hour cycle. So we evolved to be able to sort of digest readily about 15 minutes of news. per 24-hour cycle before
that would
becoming
make sense,
dysregulated.
because it actually it reminds me of the way that we learn, the zone of proximal development.
Yes.
The studies on learning something new, we become tired after about 20 to 30 minutes of new activity where we're stretching our mind or our body, such as learning to play a sport like pickleball, or learning how to play an instrument, or reading a new book that we haven't read. Like these things make us tired after 20 or 30 minutes, just mentally, not to mention physically.
Right.
And so that makes sense that the 15 minutes of news that we were hearing, if you had the radio in the 1920s, you might have only heard 15 minutes of news every 12 hours.
100%.
Because that's how things were. Right. And there's a news flash, a news bulletin. Of course, it was very controlled what was happening back then.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you can look up old clips of this, and they'd be like, our forces are fighting abroad, and rubber is rationed, or but we didn't know anything else. And then Theodore Roosevelt would or was it Teddy? Who read bedtime stories? Is that Franklin Roosevelt?
Oh, I don't know. That's hilarious.
One of the presidents. I'm going to fail my history. My history people are going to write in and be like, was it Franklin Delano Roosevelt, the one in the wheelchair? Anyway, FDR. Yeah, he was like reading bedtime stories by the fire.
I love that.
So what a wild change we are now, where I feel like I honestly, my partner, she thinks that a lot. I mean, she's sort of opined when things in our political and news world, that there's a small amount of facts and information and a large amount of drama and hyperbole. And she calls it bread and circuses. She just said, "Oh, you want to talk more about bread and circuses, about all this controversy? What's really going on? Like what's really?" And I don't mean in a conspiracy, but like what has actually changed in the last 2 weeks.
And what do I need to know, right? Like what actually pertains to me, what's going to impact my life versus, so-and-so is having a fight with so-and-so in DC, which is 3,000 miles away, and it won't impact anything. It's just sort of fodder for the...
Right. And there's a celebrity divorce, and one of them tweeted something about somebody's nose.
Right.
Why is that? Now that's in my brain. How is that helpful? No wonder we all have ADHD, right? I mean, it's it's so bizarre, but yet it's difficult as a human to filter it, because we haven't yet.
It is.
I mean, I guess there's some apps on your phone that can filter things out. I just choose not to have any notifications on my phone, except for text messages. I have those for my friends to talk to them, but I have zero news alerts. I have zero app alerts. So that being said, let's talk about this. What are some reactions that you've had to this book that you were surprised at? Maybe some positive reactions that people had that you weren't expecting.
That's a great question. I was a little bit worried when it came out. This is a dark book, right? And you'll see the cover is all full of, it's beautiful. I love the cover design.
It's like a nice, beautiful drawing with some good font.
Right. And all these colors and whatever. And it's called The Joy Reset. And you think like, oh, this is going to be a great, wonderful book. And it's there's full of darkness. There's a chapter on suicide, which I think is critically important that we talk about more widely. I gave up belief in hope in the middle of the book and almost gave the book back, almost gave the advance back and canceled the book, because I was like, I can't write a book about hope and joy if I don't believe in hope or joy. And so and what I ended up doing is just writing that into a chapter, and there's a whole story behind that, which I can tell. But I was bracing for people to be angry that it was so dark, and I'm really pleasantly surprised by how many people are saying, it's kind of odd to get these emails, because I don't know, just to people saying thank you. Like I read something in here that I've never heard anybody talk about, or, I read that at the exact right moment when I was in a struggle and it helped me through. Like that's pretty humbling stuff, and I think it will never stop surprising me that people can really get something out of it. Not that I don't think it's worthwhile, but it's different to put something out there, than it is to kind of get the positive feedback that it's actually working or making a difference, especially in ways you didn't expect, people telling their individual stories. And
Well, I think that's good. I mean, that's the fun part about art and literature. You put it out there, and you never know what you're going to get. So it's possibly a lot different than what you might have imagined. And that takes courage and bravery to put something out in the world, especially today, where I do believe there's a whole brand of online critics who make a living by trying to find something controversial within your pages and then trying to personally come after you. I don't know if that's happened to you, hopefully not. But
somebody called my last book the pick me of the trauma books.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
Oh wow, so nasty.
Which made me laugh.
And and to those folks, I always say, please let us know when you write your book and produce your first movie, because I've never seen anything except your silly critical videos that that you so bombastically declare. So
right. People sometimes. So I'm a philosopher of psychology. Philosophy of psychology, as you probably know, is a whole field. But some people I had a video go viral in 2020, which was horrifying to me because I never expected that to happen. And it's actually horrifying, like, experience. But people came after me, like, pretending I was lying. They were saying, like, you're lying. You're trying to write about psychology and you're a philosopher. And it was like, well, okay, like, everything I've ever written is available online for free. Like, there's no, and also, what would be the con? Like, so I think that just made me think of that when people come after you, like, they're trying to find the scandal. I promise I'm not that interesting.
Wow, people are so bored. My God.
Right.
It just sort of sounds like accusing somebody of selling snow cones when they're an ice cream maker. Like, I don't understand. Like, they're both cold. You can use both. I'm authorized to make both. I have a food license. Like, what is the difference here? So, so that makes me wonder. What are you doing with the book? Like, you're going on podcasts? Are you trying to go to any conferences? Are you going to try to develop a workbook? Are you, hoping for maybe a sequel or a totally different topic in the future? What are you doing?
Yeah, good question. So right now I'm working on a curriculum. And so I've been kind of bringing together the work from the last book and this book, and I'm trying to build a curriculum for K through 12 to kind of advance or to add to some of the amazing work that's already happening in social emotional learning in the schools. Because I think that so many of these tools they are so effective for resilience. And so if you could get them at a younger age, if you could understand your nervous system in 4th grade instead of at age 45, if ever, right, that could help you navigate the world in ways that would be easier and full of,
No, keep going. I love that. I mean, this is exactly like, everyone's like, what's going wrong with the world? Blah, blah, blah. I'm like, listen, it starts at home, but it also starts at school. And if our schools are too busy teaching all of the subjects they've always taught, and they're not teaching communication skills and socioeconomic skills and or not socioeconomic, sorry, social emotional skills. Why did I go to economics?
But also socioeconomic literacy.
Well, that too. But social emotional skills and how to communicate and how to have relationships and how to deal with authority and how to deal with parents and how to deal with friends. We are not teaching this in school. Right. And then we're like, why can't anyone get along? Why does everyone yell at each other? And it's unreal to me that we haven't, as a society, brought these as mandatory classes. I do not understand it. So if you can get your stuff into schools, I will be so happy. I feel like
thank you.
If I had one magic wish for the school system, they would require some type of psychology course of applied to yourself at home with practice from kindergarten to senior year. Whatever it be. And it's not brainwashing. It's just teaching people skills so that we don't beat each other up and blow each other up and cause havoc. I mean, it's unbelievable to me. So I'm a champion of that. And I hope that occurs in the public school system. I don't know what that's going to take, but I think it's about time. So
same.
I mean, I like my job, but let's face it, our clinic's overflowing with people needing therapy and therapists' jobs, because why? Now there's the normal life stuff that's always going to happen. Transitions, grief, death, marriage, divorce, babies having problems, children having issues, learning issues, disappointment, and the regular depression, anxiety, and things that happen. But there is a large amount of people coming into our office because they have been in situations in schools and in workplaces where people have horrible communication skills, awful socio-emotional skills, and bullying and these sort of unnecessary violent things. And I feel like that's all preventative. So I'm loving that you're going to try to do 100%.
That. Yeah, thank you. I totally agree. And I think like we really could change the world if people had access to more knowledge about themselves and could, then be more discerning. And then the other thing that I'm working on right now is a book on grief. That's my next, my next frontier.
So you're going from all the way from joy to grief. That's amazing. Yeah.
Well, and it's funny because at my first teaching job at the first university I taught at, they kind of they nicknamed me very sarcastically Dr. Sunshine, because I was I was studying combat PTSD, and then suicidality, and then mourning child loss, and they were like, what are you going to do next, Dr. Sunshine? And so I've sort of taken that on as a badge, right? Like, this is actually, I'm Dr. Sunshine, right? Call me whatever you want. I'm going to talk, I'm going to stand with you in the darkest thing. Let's find it. So grief kind of seems to be next. And it's definitely a theme in my life. So.
Yeah. I mean, I unfortunately, not to be gruesome, but I feel like the older we get, grief becomes a theme. I mean, there's no way around that.
Sure.
Like if you live to outlive your parents and some of your friends and other people from your life, there's inevitable grief, and your pets and all of that. So that's a thing I think we as a country could also learn to see as part of the natural progression in our lives.
100%.
I think there's entire industries predicated on avoiding grief. Oh
my God, yeah. We live in a grief-phobic society. We don't. You're told you have 3 days. Go by yourself, alone. Do your thing, and then come back into the world and don't talk about it again.
We even get 3 days. So who gets 3 days?
Sometimes, right? Yeah.
I was teasing, but I think we're also death phobic, but that's a whole nother. That's your next book. After that one.
After that.
So, but I do think that it comes back to kind of like almost that acceptance and commitment therapy, where this basic acceptance of difficulties in life sets you free to actually have a better life. And the acceptance of grief and difficulties can actually make room for joy. And that's kind of what I'm seeing here. Now, even though this isn't an ACT book at all, you go into the philosophy of it. And the philosophy is just as important as the skill. In fact, possibly more so, because you have to orient around the paradigm so that a client 100%. Or a person who's reading it can just really grasp it, because we're multifaceted beings, and we have the capacity for a great depth, but also sometimes we don't want that, right? And so we sometimes need little tools that can just get us through a tough time, or really, there's the folks, and I know you address this in the book, we don't need to go into it, who are having a good time and they're afraid to express their joy. Right, they're dampened by something. Yeah. And I'm going to leave that for the mystery of, you have to buy the book now. Yeah. The best part about books these days, and I'm not gonna rip on the publishing industry, but the prices have been about the same for the past 20 years.
Yeah.
And they used to be $15 for so long. Now they're $19. Okay. Yeah. I'm sorry, but some people go to Starbucks and get like a Frappuccino and a muffin that's $18. Okay. So you can afford a book and it'll last longer. So, and then you can sell it at a garage sale or on eBay or whatever they do, or you can just give it to some child. Or donate to a classroom without supplies. So anyway, sorry, that was a little cynical.
No. But we can get cynical about the publishing industry. I'm ready for that.
Oh yeah. I don't know. Who's your publisher? Oh,
it's Hachette.
Oh, Hachette. Yeah, I know them. Okay.
Yeah.
They're a big one. They're close to Penguin and Macmillan and Simon & Schuster. So yeah, a lot on the East Coast. So very cool. Yep. So what? Let's close with this. What is something that you are doing right now that maybe isn't in the book that you're trying to do to bring a little joy into your life? Maybe something you discovered after you wrote the book. I know that's silly, but I'm just trying to challenge you a little.
No, I love that. It's funny. So you do the book, and then you do these podcasts and these speaking engagements and whatever, and then you immediately wish that the podcasts and speaking engagements happened while you were writing the book, because these people have these amazing questions and ideas that you could have folded in to the book, but you can't because it's out now. And so one of the things that has been popping up a lot is this idea of guilt and joy and like the collective nervous system. And I think that if I could go back in time and write the book now, I've been thinking a lot about the collective nervous system, because I think because we're in pain and we're in a dysregulated state, you see that everywhere. So if you go to the grocery store or you're on the road driving, you see the dysregulation, you see the rage, you see the lack of resource all over the place. And I think, again, this is where joy and hope can be really powerful, because these things spread. I also think the other thing I'm thinking about, I did write a chapter about existentialism in the book, but I would have liked to have written more about absurdism, because I think we see the power of humor, the subversive power of humor and absurdism to kind of upend moments where we feel powerless. And so those are things I've been kind of musing on recently.
I like it. I'm not going to press further because I think that's a good point. That's a good point right there. Well, I mean, this is phenomenal. I see the depth in this, and I'm excited. I hope some people really read it and are able to gain something from it, or maybe they'll just follow you on social media. I guess you have a following on there. Are you? I'm going to post your links in the show notes, including your website and the where people can buy the book. But how can people find you on the good old social media that we're all addicted to?
The good old social medias. Yeah.
Yeah. How do we get on there?
I have the same handle I'm on TikTok and Instagram at the moment. And it's just mc.phd. And then you can join our tiny little joy practice, which has grown into this amazing little community. And
because your doctor, MaryCatherine McDonald, said MC is like a little nickname. Holy cow. You got 49,800 and something thousand followers. This is pretty good on Instagram. I don't know how many you got on TikTok, but that's pretty good. I'm going to join the ranks.
Thank you. It's the joy practice is really fun. I think it's been a really fresh, kind of a blast of fresh air in the kind of cacophony that is social media right now, because everyone gets on there every day and tells their tiny little joy, and so you always have this little comment feed that's just joyful things, which is kind of cool.
Well, that's really cool, because what a good way to use social media.
Yes.
As opposed to how it's used in other ways to kind of argue and bring down or say whatever, the idea that you're actually showing that you're trying to walk the walk, which is a very difficult thing, especially in our field in psychology. We have all these great ideas for everybody, but how do you actually implement it? And it's messy when you implement it, but it can be very, very freeing and beautiful, because then people kind of make their own version of it and kind of, can create their own, joy ideas off of yours. So that's really cool. And it spreads.
Yeah.
So
it does. Exactly.
Well, that's amazing. Keep up the great work, Dr. McDonald.
Oh, thank you.
Okay. So this is my last thing here, which is, of course, the thing where you say something to the audience. And it doesn't have to be the general audience. It could be just somebody you have in your mind that you just wanted to always say something to them about, maybe, joy or hope or love, or maybe you're annoyed at something. I don't know. This is sound off.
Sound off. The thing I want to say is that joy is coming, even for you, even if you're resisting it. That's it.
I like that. Very, very nice. Very nice.
Thank you.
All right. Well, it's been my pleasure to have you on. Thank you so much.
It's been so fun. Thank you so much for having me.
And there you have it. This has been another episode of the Intentional Clinician podcast. If you are enjoying the show, please leave us a rating on iTunes or share the show with people you know. I would surely appreciate it. As some of you know, I am passionate about preventing future violence in the United States. I have started a nonprofit with colleagues called the National Violence Prevention Hotline, which is a 501c3 organization. We are endeavoring to gain funding and collaborators and volunteers so that we can start a 24/7 hotline and chat line to reach potential perpetrators before they may act violently. It is a bold effort to curb violence and save innocent lives by working to connect with potential offenders while they are in the planning stages of violence, help to de-escalate them, and provide resources so that they can get appropriate professional help. The National Violence Prevention Hotline is looking to open up a conversation about violence in society, the causes, and the solutions. You can learn more by visiting our website at violencepreventionhotline.org. You can get involved by writing your congressperson from our website, sharing it with your network, or even donating to the cause. If you are looking for an EMDR International Association consultant, I am a consultant and I can help provide 20 hours that you need to become EMDRIA certified. Just check out the show notes and send me a message and see if we're a good fit to work together. If you are in need of counseling, do not hesitate to make an appointment with a local counselor in your area. You can also make an appointment with the excellent clinicians at Health for Life Counseling in Grand Rapids as part of the Trauma Informed Counseling Center of Grand Rapids by visiting www.healthforlifegr.com. And if you are in the state of Michigan, you can also schedule a telehealth appointment. The recording you just listened to consists of the personal opinions of Paul Krauss and his guest, and while these are based upon the literature they have read and the experience in their respective fields, the information on this podcast should not be viewed or thought of as the definitive opinion on any subject. Listening to this podcast is not a substitute for treatment. If you're in a crisis, please call 911 or the National Crisis Line at 988. Support your local bookstore by shopping at bookshop.org. That's www.bookshop.org. It donates a percentage of sales to local bookstores all across the United States, which I think gives character to our cities and a place to hang out and a place to explore. You can order from the comfort of your own home online while supporting businesses near you. If you are a therapist and you are not involved in your local counseling or therapist or social work organization, please get involved to at least pay dues so that we can have lobbyists help keep mental health care accessible at the government level, and also expanding into schools and other places that need it. And also, if you didn't know, counseling organizations and professional organizations are working to keep us from becoming gig workers for a lot of large corporations who are coming in and trying to buy up local counseling agencies or basically pay you what they pay for people to deliver food to your house. So, get involved. Until next time on The Intentional Clinician, I wish you all a safe and peaceful week.